If you want to make massive amounts of money in crypto, the most important step is to just get started. I've said that many times before in many of my videos, and still I notice a lot of people find it difficult to do exactly that. Mostly because people think their timing is off. They think if they were to buy right now, their portfolio would go down a lot, and obviously that's not something anybody wants. What if I were to tell you though? What if I could show you something though that explains why exactly it is worth just continuing to buy over time and not worry too much about those nitty-pitty details? I think every single investor at some point has thought, ooh, should I wait to buy a little bit more? And rightfully so, because nobody wants to see their portfolio go down 30% or 40% the next day. And in bull runs, ladies and gentlemen, the truth be told, it happens. It can literally happen that you buy a coin and the next day it's down 20%. But I've got something to show you, which hopefully can get you through these tough times. And if you've not done it yet, make sure you go ahead and press that like button, as we've got many cool guides, tutorials of all sorts coming that hopefully can make you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next 2 years. As the baseline for this all is that the bull run has started. So I've gone from being skeptical about every part of crypto, but buying to still buying, but now being extremely optimistic and buying with a more which coin is going to give me gains instead of which coin won't die out type of approach. Anyway, I'd like to show you this right here. This is the crypto market cycle, basically Bitcoin's performance over time. And this generally reflects onto altcoins and all of crypto. But the most important thing to note is that it stopped somewhere in 2023. And I'd say the most interesting part to note is just how accurate this chart has been throughout time. And you can also look at some other very known models like the stock to flow model. But let's just quickly explain. What you see is that Bitcoin goes into a growth phase, a bubble phase, a crash, some accumulation. So this is basically a little bit of sideways trading, some growth, some bubble where the prices go absolutely crazy, back into a crash, back into some sideways trading, back into growth, again, accumulation, but more severely, calling it a bubble before a crash and everything resets again. And the reason I'm showing you guys this is because right now you can see where in the cycle we currently are. You could argue that because this stops at about 2023 somewhere, that right now we are somewhere in the green. That's completely cool. But I'll tell you this, in no way, shape or form are we at the end of the yellow-orange as of this point. And the point here being that the most bullish of times is yet to come. And even though there might be some hiccups along the road, you have to understand the reason right now some people sign up for Bybit with the link down below, that's the exchange I personally use, and just keep adding to their long positions is because they understand that if you take a multi-month outlook, you look further into the future by a couple of months, prices will be up so much that you buying throughout all this time and just keep stacking it up will have been worth it. Because even though it's not worth it for a few days, a few weeks maybe, a few months, and many people just look at the very short term. They were getting into crypto, for example, in this red period right here, and thus they think that crypto is always going to come crashing back down. It's always going to It always crashes at some point though. You can see even in this yellow, you can see there are crashes, which I know are roughly 30% every single time, but it's all the way towards the top. And let's say you had the opportunity to get in here at this green point, right there, that top. Yes, you might be annoyed the next few days as the price comes crumbling down by whatever, 40%, pick your number, pick your poison, right? Maybe even 80%, I don't know, I don't care. Because if you look further, a couple of months along, look at just how much higher things were. And so at this top, you might think, ooh, should I wait? Should I wait? Should I wait? And yes, maybe you're right. Maybe you could have waited a few days and bought yourself a little bit cheaper. But maybe, just maybe, that point which you're buying at is, for example, one of these higher points, like right here, where you decide not to buy, wait for a bigger dip, but it never decides to happen along this journey anymore. And that's the point I'm trying to make, that always waiting, just waiting for a better opportunity, very often nips you in the butt, because you've got a time for waiting, a time for slowly accumulating at the right time at a lousy DCA, versus a time of just buy anything you can, let's go freaking crazy. And right now we're not in that time yet. The yellow phase has not arrived, but we're in the green phase for sure, or perhaps end of this grayish phase. Again, it's hard to say where exactly we are on the scale. And I also know that people are taking their money off of exchanges quite rapidly here, as they are anticipating just some crazier moves for Bitcoin. It's true. Since the BlackRock Bitcoin ETFs are going to be approved anytime, even if it does not happen this cycle, it's going to happen. But the retail is not here. It's just not the time to be selling just quite yet. Yeah, perhaps for the very short term, if you want to quickly sell a top like the one right here, where indeed you might have caught a local top and you might be better off selling and buying back a few months from there. But ultimately, if you look a couple months into the future, if you just kept on buying once, buying twice, buying 3 times, buying a 4th time, you would have still been better off than trying to weigh your luck, because you're not exactly sure where in this cycle you are. And if you're selling, you've got the chance that you sell just at the wrong time and things just never come back down. But hey, that's up for yourself to make the determination on. And one more part of this flow I'll quickly tell you about is that it also moves in a very logical fashion, where Bitcoin does well first, then some other large altcoins, and then as the market keeps getting more and more retail, more people who didn't know about crypto just before, it goes to the more crazy stuff, and then at some point the quote-unquote bubble, as at that point, collapses. A lot of money flows back into Bitcoin, back into dollars, euros, etc., and the cycle resets yet again. But I want you to know that after a massive Bitcoin rally, altcoins go even crazier than Bitcoin has. But of course, along the journey, you might see your portfolio go down 30%, 40%. It can happen, but ultimately it'll all be worth it as long as crypto repeats itself, which thus far it's always done. And I also often like to refer back to this chart right here, which showcases the Bitcoin price performance relative to the S&P. And it showcases that every single time the S&P makes an all-time high, which right now we're very close to, that Bitcoin gets to an all-time high a couple months after. Just to put it into perspective, you can see the S&P makes an all-time high right there. And if we look at the Bitcoin price, a few months later, you can see this little line moving here, right? Bitcoin makes an all-time high, so right here. Here, the S&P makes an all-time high, and as you can just see from the left and the right chart where Bitcoin makes its all-time high slightly afterwards every time. S&P makes all-time high right here, and we can see Bitcoin's all-time high slightly afterwards, and so forth and so on. But right now, the S&P hasn't made an all-time high just quite yet, but it's getting very close to it. And the moment that it does, it could be very interesting for Bitcoin's price, as obviously we've gotten even an inch closer, and I just keep that in the back of my head. Anyway, with the whole Bitcoin ETFs coming in, things can get more volatile than I've ever been before. And I wouldn't be surprised if right after the announcement, we see some crazy price moves for a bit, but that's the game we're playing. All I care about and all I know is that if we take the span of a few months, it'll all have been worth it. And the most important part is to get started and don't give up. And those are by far the hardest parts as well. Most people I speak to, they don't want to get started because they don't know how it's difficult or it's too blah, 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 excuses. Or they give up too quickly thinking it's not for them, or they lost some money, something like that. Ultimately, it's your own choice. It's your money. Please decide for yourself what you want to do. But the way I personally always see it is at least I'd want to try. Anyway, if you want to learn more about these crypto airdrops that I talked about a bit earlier, I've got a link for that on my channel. Or if you want to learn more about trading, I've got a second channel for that called Dusty Trades. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, or hopefully it got you to the mindset that you need to be in, make sure you press that like button. And I really hope that I'm going to keep seeing you guys over the next couple of months, weeks, years, because the ones that hold on usually make it big. And that's, as I said before, the hardest part.